I think like leaning more towards demand generation, it's the best strategy to do. Like you mean not only solely focus and just rely on lead generation channels, just start thinking and just like implementing and incorporating these demand generation initiatives in the strategy.
Hey, I'm Corrina.
And I'm Taylor.
And this is Direct, a podcast we created to showcase the creativity and hard work of go-to-market teams everywhere.
We're here to share the stories and experiences of the hardworking, passionate individuals who make up go-to-market teams, the ones who truly make the magic happen.
Taylor and I have been fortunate enough to work side by side on some incredible projects together, and now we want to put a spotlight on the unsung heroes behind some of the best go-to-market campaigns out there.
In each episode, you'll hear from individual contributors who have gone above and beyond to make a difference. They'll share their challenges, victories, and the lessons they've learned along the way, all to help you unlock the next step in your career. Get ready to be inspired, learn something new, maybe even share a laugh or two.
Welcome to Direct.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Direct. I am your host, Taylor Young, with my fabulous co-host, Corrina Owens.
Hey, everybody.
We are both so excited today to be with Dilara Cossette. Dilara is the founder and head of demand generation at Focus Image Pro, where she specializes in offering fractional demand generation solutions specifically designed for B2B companies, boasting nearly a decade of dedicated experience in the ever-evolving field of demand generation. Dilara has honed her skills in developing innovative strategies that consistently produce measurable outcomes. She's also the mom of two and speaks over 4 languages. Dilara, what languages do you speak?
It's English, obviously, French, Russian, Azeri, and Turkish.
Wow, that is super impressive. And you're speaking French because you are coming from Montreal with us today.
Yes, that's true.
Wonderful. Well, as you know, and all of our listeners will be aware, we always kick off with one specific question, and that is, if you had a magic wand, what would you change about your life, your role, B2B marketing? What would that be?
Wow, such a great question. I would say I would be earlier starting like measuring, demand generation versus lead generation, like how lead generation versus like converted right now to demand generation. And I would be earlier in my career less focused on ROI before investing in any campaigns or channels, because right now, it's so blended, with all the cookies and policies, you really don't know where the leads are coming from. And even before earlier, let's say 5 years ago, we were always trying to calculate ROI before investing in any channels. I wish I would do it way earlier in my career.
I think you're not alone with that. So yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. Well, Dilara, I know we have a campaign in particular to hop in today, and it's actually one that has not appeared yet as a topic on our show, and that's really all around paid advertising. So set the stage for us a little bit. What is this campaign in particular that you want to dive into and dissect today?
Absolutely. So one of my clients, they were working with an agency where they were really focused on specific, target audience and specific metrics, and they didn't have really like the overview and what's happening after. And when I started like supporting the client with their lead generation, demand generation activities, we really looked at that from the holistic approach, right? What's happening after? We sit down with sales team a few times per week, trying to understand where the leads are coming from. Are they qualified? Are they not qualified? And that helped me to circle back and make changes in those campaigns. And that drove significant results in not only number of MQLs, but also to the closed revenue opportunities as well.
Can you give us a bit of context too about the landscape of the client in particular, whether it's like just industry, demographics like that?
So the client that I was supporting and I'm still supporting, so basically for the over like 14 months, they're in B2B, B2C customers. So that's a little bit tricky, like in between space. And yeah, they were leveraging paid social media, like social media channels, as well as Google ads, but really going after specific keywords. And then we looked and checked like, okay, what are people are really looking for and actually how they're converting. So I was joining the calls with the sales team, demo discovery calls to understand the type of questions they're asking. And that helped to go back and just make changes in the keywords and segmented those campaigns. I'll give an example of Google ads, the way how people are searching. Basically, it's like a top of funnel, bottom of funnel. definitely the keywords are different. And the agency that they were running campaign, they were all merged, like how to type of campaigns, how to keywords. They were all merged with one campaign. And we didn't have really like the clear kind of like definition of like, okay, what is the buyer's journey, right? They're looking for specific solution. What they're really looking for, are they at the beginning of their journey or they're ready to buy? And they helped actually to save a lot of money and drive significant results. So that drove like over 180% increase in opportunities created from those specific channels.
That's an incredible result. How did you get, it sounds like they were going down a path of having these sort of merged or jumbled keyword strategies. How did you get them on board with separating, and how did you explain the concept of separating a top of funnel keyword from bottom funnel keywords?
It's a good question. I think it's going back to the buyer's journey, like putting yourself in buyer's journey in their shoes, trying to understand even when we are looking for specific solution, which type of keywords we're looking. At the beginning, we're trying to understand and acknowledge that we have a problem. So basically, it's a lot of like how to do, how to solve, how to type of keywords. Definitely, it's really top of funnel. And the reason you try to educate them. There's a lot of education in there. Like it's not really like about selling, right? They're not ready to buy. So basically you want to drive them to the landing page where they will educate themselves, maybe like a calculator, maybe just like, case studies or like some, top level information. And when people are really acknowledge that they have a problem and they know which type of solutions might help them, they're looking for different solutions, different like keywords. So basically they're typing, let's say, the software provider or solution pain points, and then they're looking for software platform, this type of keywords. Basically, you can drive them to the same landing page. So one of the things in the implementation, we created separate landing pages. So each campaign, bottom of funnel type of keywords, we're driving them to one landing page, and then middle of funnel, when they were acknowledging the problem, it was like in different landing page. And when they were ready to buy, they were looking like, more pricing, more like, keywords, branded keywords. Then it was like a book a demo type of landing page. So that helped as well. But it's like part of really whole analysis and just understanding the buyer's journey. And I would say like talking to sales is very important. I think a lot of companies are working in silos, like marketing doesn't know what sales does and they always complain, right? Marketing says like sales doesn't know how to talk to prospects, and sales say like, marketing qualified leads. It's just the leads. They're not qualified. So yeah, I think like building these bridges between sales and marketing is very important based on trust.
I think it's really interesting because it sounds that they came to you with a problem, which was probably, we need more leads. And they had their own hypothesis for how they could generate more leads. And that was probably with a lot of pitch slap type of content. To your point, they probably brought up, let's keep taking them back to the demo page over and over again. So not only are you, as an output, giving them helpful content that's going to be helpful for their buyer's journey, but it also sounds like you're doing a lot of enablement around your own process with this client and teaching them about how they need to be thinking about the different stages to get to that final end goal. So could you share with us, what was the objective that they came to you with originally? And then how did you kind of rescope that work to get them to ultimately arrive at a positive ROI with your outcome? But what was the original objective that they were hoping to achieve?
It was more quality rather than quality, because the quantity was in place, but the quality was not there. So when I offer like fractional demand generation solutions, I say like my goal is like a revenue oriented goal. It doesn't really matter the quantity. Do they really convert to sales opportunities? No, then the campaign doesn't work, right? So every single company, they have different sales cycles depending, let's say like if it's a 3 months, then you wait 3 months and you just analyze, okay, if they convert you to close the deal, then the campaign is working and you can invest more money. So the issue that they have, the leads were just like coming like thousands of leads per month, right? But none of them were converting, right? They were ghosting. They were not moving down the sales pipeline. So that wasn't the issue. And I understand because, the agencies like, external vendors, they didn't have access to the CRM. They didn't have this overview. They were just generating and focusing on, low cost or CPC, for example, right? And like number of leads. But what is the conversion rate? How they are moving, how fast they are moving down the funnel, and what is the rate and also the cost per opportunity created, right? Closed deals. So all these metrics are really important. And they were like a foundation. So I circled back to the year, over 1 year that they were working as an agency to look at the data and find the issue and problem. And this is where I say, like, okay, there's something missing, and that collaboration piece was missing. Absolutely.
So you mentioned other agencies kind of sometimes they struggle, they focus on these like lower level metrics, these volume based metrics, but also sometimes you get stuck in having to focus on those metrics because you only have access to the ad platform. Like you said, they don't give you access to the CRM. So how do you approach your clients or this client and say, well, in order for me to improve and get better revenue-oriented results for you, I have to be able to look into your data. How do you get people on board with that?
I think like that's an approach that I have. I usually say like, hey, I want to be an extended part of your team, fractional or not fractional. I want to be on your Slack channel. I want to be on your meetings. I want to be part of your general channel. So basically we work together and I collaborate. So I'm having access like to all the data, to all the CRM, marketing automation, because I think that's also crucial. And I really like managing this lead nurturing process, because it's not about like, okay, this is the 100 MQLs, do whatever you want. It's a lot of like, coaching and supporting the sales team and also marketing as well. If they have internal person doing lead generation, that's great. We'll work together to create this workflows and cadences, as well as sales enablement tools, right? To make sure that sales know who to talk to and how to talk to. And if they're ready, if they're not ready, then it's on marketing to nurture them until they're ready to talk to someone from the sales team.
Taking it back to the paid per click, paid advertising aspect of it, how did you know at the forefront what channel to heavily invest in and why?
Very good question. It depends on the industry, I would say, and what are their goals. If they want to, let's say, like nurture everyone that they received in their pipeline and then want to re-engage, definitely the volume is not a case. It's more about quality. And then we're focusing more on making sure like we generate less leads if the sales team, for example, is limited and we don't have time, right, to talk to them. Then we're limiting, let's say, like number of inbound leads, but making sure that we talk with everyone that are really raising their hands and saying like, okay, I have an interest. And we talk to everyone, because the worst thing that could happen if you're filling the form and then it's a radio silence, right? It's really harming brand reputation, which is the worst thing, right? That could happen. You will never get back. You can change jobs, you can change roles, but it means that if you treat it, not properly, you will never refer anyone to that company. And you will never consider them, right? Because I think like brand reputation is also part of demand generation as a long-term strategy, because you definitely want to have as many brand ambassadors as possible. And this is all about connection, right? Making sure you connect with people and you treat them properly with respect.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's just, it used to be nice to have. I think it's a necessity these days. That's how you're going to stand out. That's how you're going to really get credibility. And that does feed into how do you even present through these different paid outlets as well. I mean, that can get trickier and trickier to reestablish. So curious, going back to, the particular campaign that we were going to dive into, what would you say from a metrics perspective really stood out that made you think, okay, if I do these three things every time I do a paid advertising engagement with a client, we have a high likelihood of knocking it out of the park?
I would say, looking back at the metrics and going back to your question about the cost per click, I mean, which is like, just a click, right? I mean, did they convert or not? I always take in consideration like three main factors. It's a cost per MQL. Absolutely. They're really qualified. Marketing to sales qualified leads ratio, and also closed marketing to closed one. So MQL, cost of MQL, like what is the conversion, the ratio to the closed one. I think like these three main metrics, if you have like this on place, the rest will just like, more secondary metrics. And for sure, like we also want to spend less and get more. So basically, like if you have like this, like, LTV CAC ratio, like in place. Also, if we're talking about the channels, definitely you have to calculate channel per, cost per channel and the quality of the leads coming from specific channels, especially if you want to do a budget for next year, you're always looking back and analyzing those metrics for the previous year to know how to allocate the budget. But if you have access to the data, that's great. If you don't, you have just like test and run for a few months and just take it from there.
Yeah, I want to pull on that thread a little bit, because I feel like we'll probably have a lot of startups and bootstrap companies that could really use your services if they don't have access to the historical data and they haven't really tested and played around in these different channels before. What do you do to convince them and give them the confidence to get started?
to provide them with some very top level like analysis, projected number of leads, because, similar, like if they're in the industry, like all the benchmarks are there. So basically you're taking their budget and you're suggesting to start small. And I always suggest to start with bottom of channels, bottom of leads, whereas like Google Ads, for example, one of the examples, if they don't have dedicated budget, I will always say like, okay, invest in your brand awareness. So start, promoting your brand on social media, like make one person like employee ambassador and just make sure that person is engaging with everyone in the ICP and take it from there. Basically, it's really depending on the budget and their goals. Another factor is like if they have someone on the team from marketing or sales. Usually for the startups, they have like 1 or 2 person from marketing, and those like it's usually CM or VP of marketing. They don't really run the implementation or run the ads. This is where we collaborate and work together on the strategy, on the demand generation strategy, and we're taking from there depending on their budget. But I always say like start small, get some data, and take it from there. If there's like even small startup, we can always invest like, a few hundreds there and here just to test and see like if it's something like, feasible or if we're going in the right direction. But I think my suggestion, and again, I might be wrong, right? I think Google Ads is a good way to start if you're starting from the scratch and this is your first campaign. At least like, come up with some keywords that are implemented already, like with your SEO strategy, and try to put some budget behind that. I've noticed that when you start running ads, it's really boosting your SEO as well. So kind of like solving 2 problems at the same time. So it's something like I always recommend to start with Google Ads. If you don't want to start, you're not feeling comfortable, let's do it. And then we'll take it from there. I don't know if that answers your question, but there's no like, yes, black and white, situations.
Yeah, it's absolutely situational. And I love the concept and the idea of just start. Many people get hung up on not starting or making the perfect decision as opposed to starting small. Fail fast, learn fast is one of my favorite phrases that I use with my teams. Understand and thinking of like fail fast, learn fast. What are you looking for in optimizing? Say someone's getting started with Google search and you're looking for those later stage revenue type metrics. But once those start to come in, are you layering on paid search with like ICP type metrics in order to increase their cost per actual closed won opportunity or decrease?
Yeah. Basically, yes. So if we're talking about Google Ads, basically taking like all the keywords like, solution, pain points, just like take 1 campaign, 2 campaigns, test and try, and just like for sure take it like the CPC as well and see like how they are really coming, like what is the quality of inbound leads coming in. But it's a very common pain points of like small startups, especially if we're talking about like the founders and CEOs of tech, startups. They don't believe in marketing, or they used to work with marketing agency. They didn't generate enough leads and now they don't want to invest. As well as like, as an example, SEO. 5 years ago, no one wanted to do SEO because it was waste of time and money. And now like it's part of like, the strategy. You build the website and everyone is talking about SEO. I think with demand generation, it's the same, right? In 5 years, we will see people doing more and more, understanding that all this like, social proof, personal branding, it's always also like linked with a demand generation strategy, very long term. Not always you can calculate ROI on these channels because they can see your post on LinkedIn, but come from organic or even paid, right? And you will attribute to paid. However, it's not really the case. But I think convincing them to invest and start, you're right. This is very challenging because you have to start in order to prove, but proving them, okay, this is number of approximate, the projected number of MQLs we can generate. Let's start. Let's see. If we're getting closer to that, then increase the budget. I never suggest to put like 10,000, especially if they're first campaign. Definitely. I'm also like, founder, right?
Yeah.
I always try to understand them from budget perspective.
How do you approach those projections? I think a lot of people would benefit from understanding your thought process on like, if there is not a lot of data, if you are working at a startup and maybe you're even the first marketing hire or you're running an agency like you are for a startup, how are you approaching making projections without too much data?
Yeah, I would say like 3 reference would be the one in industry B2B benchmark, which is like, there's a lot of data. First will be that. Second will be if they have a data already or they did something, or maybe like organic leads, right? They just have to have something, right? To take that data in order to calculate some kind of like a projections. And the third one will be just using different softwares. Let's say in Google, if we're talking about Google, I don't know why I'm talking about Google, but just like a good example, right? They have like a keyword planner where you can see like specific keywords are like, okay, this is the range of the CPC cost. And it's helping to calculate the circle and back to say like you have 5K. This is type of keywords that you want to target, that how much like you will be able to get. Among that, you're taking the data, how many leads they got and how many sales qualified deals they created, and then you're just taking from there. But I would say like three, it's like a benchmark. It's a data that they have, even if it's like really not enough data, but still sufficient to say, okay, this is a starting point. And the third one is the software, like, SEMrush, different tech metrics like Google and so on.
Well, speaking of Google, as you know, there's all these mandates and changes, requirements that people are going to have to adhere to come February. I believe your episode will be dropping then too. So this will be very, very timely. I'm curious, do you have any kind of hot takes or predictions for these new mandates that are coming out, specifically as it relates to anybody with Google and Yahoo for the email send?
I think like leaning more towards demand generation, it's the best strategy to do. Like, you mean not only solely focus and just rely on lead generation channels, just start thinking and just like implementing and incorporating these demand generation initiatives in the strategy. Because yes, I mean, what happened like with all these restrictions and cookies and policies, you can't really rely on that. And even a lot of companies, they couldn't see the data and the source to be like 100 accurate. And that actually ruined a lot of things, right? They didn't know which channels to invest because they didn't have this data. So I think the demand generation, all the aspects to make sure like you are placing on external websites, if we're talking about the B2B SaaS company, software directories, there's over 30 different websites where you can list your company profile free of charge. Some of them are offering still like Capterra, GTO, like, they have different, tactics and mechanism, but still there's a lot of way to use and increase like a revenue, reviews, like work with the CS team and just like, help customers to generate number of leads. And this is part of demand generation strategy as well.
I think that's a great perspective because that's exactly why those sites are offering people to have those profiles for free, because it goes back to like your earlier talking points of just as you're thinking about paid, you have to be thinking about organic too, to assist that. And that's a way for them to start to build that kind of presence online, is to be able to have mass listings that aren't dependent on somebody paying them for the listing or not. So it's a good tactic, I think, for both. And it's a great reference point.
Yeah, reviews, especially even if we shop for shoes, right? We always go and check reviews. The same with a B2B. I mean, buyers, they're spending a lot of time, and we interview a lot of buyers and customers, how they found us, right? I mean, that's also part of my job to understand. That's helping me. Like, okay, you found us. Like, I mean, I see in the CRM system, you came from organic, and there was like way long time ago. I was following you on LinkedIn. I saw something, someone referred. I'm like, oh my God, there's no clear attribution. That's for sure. And we see like organic. It's great. It goes to SEO attribution, not really, because more and more I'm having this conversation, more I'm really confident that demand generation is the future of all the B2B SaaS companies. And quicker, everyone will understand that, quicker revenue they will generate. And like, I mean, all the buyers, they spend a lot of time when they're ready, and they come up like really with 4 or 5 vendors, even way before they're filling the form. So making sure you have enough reviews there, you interact, you engage, you respond to all the reviews, bad or good, no matter what. That's also your brand reputation. And that's a really significant part of their, decision-making process, because based on stats, 86% already made out their decision before filling the form. Sometimes, they have to come up to the leadership team saying like, I made this analysis and I spoke with 5, even though they know already which vendor they will choose, but just they need to talk to everyone, right? And then we think like, oh, we lost that deal or we won the deal because we were great. Actually, no, because the decision has been made way long time ago.
Yeah. I mean, I love everything you're saying. I think it shows that for so long, we've just been over-indexing on attribution, and we've gotten so far away from the customer. And really, like to your point, just asking, how did you find us, or why did you end up selecting us? I feel like marketers are often not only not asking the question, but they're certainly not even in the room when the question's asked. So it's great to see that marketing is starting to trend in the direction of being really more customer centric and using attribution as more of a guiding point rather than a stake in the sand.
100%. Watching and listening to recordings of disco and demo calls helps a lot. I mean, that's something like you don't have visibility at all. And then the only thing you saw after the form is filled is just like all this like status, deal stages. But you don't know what they're talking about, right? You can just go and just read all the emails, but listening and watching, that honestly helped me for every single organization I was working for. It's very insightful hearing all these questions they're asking, concerns, who they talk to, how they found us sometimes, right?
Yeah. Well, speaking of, thinking ahead and then looking back at your question of the magic one at the top of the hour, you answered it in a way that I think many of us could relate to, which is that you really wish that your younger self, when you were just getting started in this, that you didn't over-index into thinking about lead generation for the sake of lead generation. You wish you understood demand generation more holistically. And while, Taylor and I can provide you a time traveling machine to go back and do it, there are things that I think that we could all employ going forward. And I think you, especially being in the position, bravo, by the way, I'm launching your own company. Being in that position, you're at a little bit more of a place where you can actually set your hours and really plan out your time management. And I think that there's an opportunity for you to not only educate others on like how you see things differently now versus how you saw it then. There's also probably a space that we can fill for what are some things that we don't even know that are coming that will eventually be like the thing that every marketer is talking about, and just designating a space for you to just sit and absorb and be a sponge for the things that nobody has really formed like a true position on or, subject authority on. And then you 5 years from now will be that. And so it's not like solving that for back then, but I feel like you're absolutely able to establish authority now, especially with how you view your learnings from lead gen and demand gen, but also maybe there's a space for something new. We won't even maybe be calling it demand generation in a couple of years, and you might be ahead of the curve simply because you had the wherewithal to know I need to make time and space to pay attention to other thoughts and other ideas and absorb that and then make, your own hypothesis on what you think is best. What do you think? How they do? Is that a good reply to how maybe we could solve that magic wand for you?
I hope so. But yeah, you're right. We don't know how it will be like in 5 years, right? I always say marketing is about testing. It's like making a mess in the kitchen and then cleaning it after. Once you find the recipe, that's about marketing, right? It's really, I see demand generation as out of box solutions. You shouldn't be afraid of testing the things. Start small. Don't invest a lot. But honestly, if you post something on LinkedIn and it doesn't resonate, no one will remind or remember it, like, in a few weeks, right? But you test it, so like, okay, well, this is the algorithm that I'm trying to solve and break. I wish we all know how it works. We would be millionaires by that time. But I mean, you have to try, right? You shouldn't be limited to, like, okay, this is lead generation or this is demand generation. I know like a lot of marketers speak only about lead generation or demand generation. I see some part of lead generation still in the marketing, in the demand generation strategy, because you can just like not invest, right? Especially with the high competition. If all your competitors are investing, it's like a gambling. They invest more, you have to invest more. So by the time you still reach the capacity of your budget and you can go above that. So once you run out of budget, let's say in November, it means in December, you're not running any campaigns and like you don't have any inbound. So it has to be like some kind of like a balance there. I would say maybe like 15% lead generation, but the rest should go to demand generation, more long-term strategy. This is how I see it, because if you rely solely on demand generation, you will be sitting and waiting for a few years, maybe. Who knows, right? Mm-hmm. By the time the campaigns start performing, similar to SEO, you make changes and you just wait. That's it. You have to have this like lead generation component, but investing in right channels, it's very important. Finding the right channel. But again, you have to test and try.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This has been incredibly insightful in what you were just talking about, the balance between lead gen and demand gen, the metrics that actually matter to the bottom line of a company, but also holding on to the fact that you do have to serve these more short-term, near-term goals as well. This has been brilliant. We really appreciate you coming on, and congratulations again on starting up and really running your own business here as well. So thank you so much, Dilara, for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking, speaking, and sharing our knowledges. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Direct with Corrina and Taylor.
If you enjoyed what you heard in today's episode, please give us a follow, maybe even a 5-star review, wherever you listen to your podcast.
And if you know someone that you'd like to spotlight, if you want to share your own story, visit us at motionagency.io/direct. We'd love to hear from you.